Hey guys, this is Dr. Matt Wenning at winningstrength.com. And we're at that part of the year, close to 2025, where the next 12 months is kind of shining upon us and starting the process of, where the new year, new me crowd starts to come out. And hopefully, if you've been watching this channel, we're not part of that crowd, although we can take some major tips and help us to make 2025 our best year yet. For a lot of us, working out is a hobby. Working out is something that is a chore to do. For a lot of us, it's not a passion like it is for me, or where it's part of your actual job profile like it is mine. But I find that a lot of people that are going to follow a lot of these things we're going to talk about today tend to be the ones that, one, make more progress, two, adhere to their programs and their diets, and three, tend to live a better, healthier life over the next 5, 10, and 15 years. So let's dive into what are the top things that I think you can do to make 2025 your best year yet, whether it's fitness or weight loss or whatever those goals may be. The first one is we need to set short-term goals because everybody talks about the year. Well, I'm here to tell you that unless you're a very skilled periodization expert, designing an entire year of workouts is very difficult. We have things called microcycles, mesocycles, macrocycles, and annual and quadrennial plans. If we look at a lot of the different Russian textbooks, these are all various different links of training, but there are different links for a reason. The reason that there are different time parameters is in order for you to be able to control and break down long-term progressions into short-term manageable things. So if we look at my manuals, for example, most all of them are set up in 12-week blips, which is roughly about 3 months, okay? Now, 3 months or 12 weeks, it's a great time block to see progress, either in lifting, diet, or even if we wanted to talk monetary amount, right? If we are really diligent about saving money for 3 months, we can usually see a pretty big chunk of change saved up in either the bank or under our mattress or whatever type of savings we're trying to do. But for most people, 1 year goals for most lack milestones. They lack strategic checkpoints and accountability. And the reason is because for most people, their jobs, time constraints, versus family, relationships, and other expectations oftentimes get in the way, and workouts are the fourth, fifth, or maybe not even in the top 10 things that are what should be regimented in our daily lifestyle. But we have to understand and realize that being in good shape is very important for us to be able to help others. Because although being in our late 20s or 30s or maybe even early 40s, a lot of times that's the time for parents to be mostly involved with their kids and they let their own wellness go to the wayside. But I'm here to tell you that most people really enjoy life when they're in their 50s and 60s. Their kids have grown up, started to make their own money, and they can still go live a youthful lifestyle while their kids are young. And so investing in your own body's health and wellness and stress reduction is a huge factor to how you're going to live the last third or so of your life, which is anything I'd say above 50 or so years old. You can definitely tell the people that have stayed fit and ate clean after 50 for sure, possibly even 40 nowadays. The thing of it is that 12 weeks and shorter goals are actually really good and a high plan, and is why we make a lot of the programming on 12-week blocks, both on Patreon for the workouts and in the different types of training on the website with manuals. Usually 12 weeks is a really good snapshot. The next thing I think that fits into the meso, micro, macro cycles is tracking your progress. And tracking your progress comes really in a handful of ways, which is what I really like about our Train Heroic app. If you go on the Train Heroic app, it actually maps out your weekly and monthly volumes and keeps track of your energy levels and all kinds of different things that are super important for long-term progression. But in reality, and myself included, and a lot of people at the gym, we still use training manuals or logs, meaning we break in books and we write down the workouts, and then we can keep track of what we're doing. This not only gives us a great indicator of where we're going and how much progress we've made, because if we flip back 3, 4, 5 months, we can actually see the progress happening, which is a huge advantage and also a huge proponent for sticking with what you're doing. I find that most people that fail at doing workouts or diets are not necessarily writing down what they're doing. They're just kind of going in and going with the flow or just kind of doing what feels right. So one big tip that I can give you guys is every Sunday, I lay out the next week's training protocol with a longer duration thought process as well. But on Sunday, when I start to go in and write the workouts and post them on Patreon, I'm actually utilizing my mindset from the last 2 and 3 weeks to decide what I do the week after that. One of the biggest things that I think that you can take away from this is that when you're doing things in 3-week or 4-week blips, i.e. about a month or 30 days, there's a lot of things that need to be taken into account. One, we should have a mental and physical deload at least every 30 days. That is a huge factor for a lot of people. Two, our recovery needs to be just as important as our training. And we're not going to go into that on this particular video. But my point is, if you're writing down the days in which you train, the time in which you're training, your energy, you might be able to find some relevant cues on when may be the best time for you to train. Is it before work? Is it after work? What did you eat when you were training that made you feel good or bad? That's another big indicator for, trying to eat correctly, which leads us into the next thing we should be calculating, which is a food log. I find that most people that adhere to a diet pick a day like Sunday where they prep all of their food or at least most of their food for the week. Then that way they can just pull it out and they can just heat it up and they can eat it, versus like leaving it to chance. And then you're hungry as hell driving by a Wendy's or a McDonald's and you're like, well, man, I haven't eaten anything for like 6 hours. I'm starving. If you had your meals planned out the whole day, that wouldn't be an issue. The other thing that I find that meal prepping really does for people is that it creates kind of a guilt that if you spend this money at the grocery and you prep this food, that it's a waste of time and energy if you're not eating it. So it makes you pull out of your storage. I use Pyrex containers, try not to use plastics. But if you have 2 or 3 meals with you at all times, it makes it a lot harder to cheat, especially when missing meals and get so hungry that you don't have any self-control over anymore. But I find that most people that ask me diet questions do zero meal prep and then wonder why they get in trouble. Now, completely off the grid of this with no notes, some of the other things that I think is important is going to bed super early. I find, and I have found with a lot of world champions that I've talked to, both in strongman, powerlifting, and professional sports, most of them tend to have a really early bedtime. And this is no coincidence. We know that recovery and sleep play a crucial role in not only how lean you are, but also how much muscle you have. So sleeping is ultra important. Some people, like myself, when squatting all-time world records, I was sleeping anywhere from 10 and a half to 11 hours a day just to be able to recover. This means that social lives are very difficult to sustain if your major goal is to be the best you can be, because a lot of normal people don't have goals like that and they're not willing to sacrifice their nightlife in order to make more progress. But in general, what we find is that people that tend to stay up later eat worse, train less, and have way more difficult blood work to have to figure out. One of the biggest things that I think you can kind of mirror off of is that making sure that you're not around blue light after around 8 p.m. Always try to go to sleep early. It's been said a handful of times that every hour before midnight that you sleep is twice as recuperative as the hours after midnight. This may indicate why people that work third shifts tend to have poor metabolisms. They tend to have a lot more health problems, is because the body is really intended to be asleep on third shifts. Now, I know for factories and things that work of that nature, it's very difficult. But long term, if you can work your way back to a first shift or a normal person's sleep cycle, it's huge. My whole point to all of that is that, are you putting in the sleep that you need to make the progress that you want to make? And if the answer is no, you probably want to fix that. So I hope that this starts to help you guys with 2025. Obviously, we're here to help with programming. We talk a lot of recovery on Patreon. We have a lot of different things like Train Heroic where we can map out volume and intensities, which we do for a lot of our clients, especially our fire departments and our other contracts. But the point is that measuring things and keeping things under control and things that you can manipulate is tracking your progress, writing down what you eat, writing down what you train, making sure that you're setting short and long-term goals that are both achievable and long enough to see progress. All of these things are super important. And if you want to make 2025 your best year, try this. One more thing I would like to throw in is that make sure that you're reading. And I know it's easy to get on the internet and read stuff. Books far outweigh the internet. I'm here to tell you right now that even when I made my book, I would say only about 5% of the information in my new book coming out, hopefully within the year, is from the internet. The other 95% is from books. Reading books and having to go through an editing process and listening less to people's opinions and a little bit more on the factual side is much more important. And so I find that I learn so much more from books than I ever learned from the internet. So that's another big thing for 2025. Try to read like 10 pages a day, roughly. 10 pages a day times 365 days a year is 3,600 pages, roughly. And if you're looking at 3,600 pages, that's like how many books? An average book's probably around 200 pages. So you're looking at reading like 15, 20 books a year. Imagine doing that for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Your amount of information would be very high. I've been doing that for 15 or 20 years and have noticed a massive difference. And not only how I speak to you guys on YouTube, but when I go talk at these big conferences with hundreds, if not thousands of people listening, it makes me feel like I can walk in and be an expert in my field. And what was also that led me for me to get my doctorate in July of 2024 was the fact that I was already doing so much reading that doing extra schoolwork wasn't that big of a deal. Just a little personal note for me. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. But I find that if you could read 10 pages a day, you would make 2025 your best year yet. Talk to you guys soon, and please visit winningstrength.com.